Good evening, listeners from Choiseul, St.Lucia, and online. Welcome to another episode of Youth on the Rise. Again, today is a very special episode for multiple reasons, and I'll tell you about my guest here. But this evening, we are celebrating 1 year of the show being on. And we started, it's not exactly 1 year, today is the 17th, I think. So, we started on January 15th, 2015, and it's about a year of coverage, and today is a very special evening for that. Now, this evening, I have a very special guest with me, and he's actually the interim leader of the Lucians Green Party, and he's none other than DeCaires. Good evening, Mr. DeCaires. Welcome to Youth on the Rise.
Good evening. Great to be here. It's a great meeting you, and congratulations on your anniversary.
Thank you. And this evening, listeners, we are about to discuss a very interesting set of topics, especially on the legalization or decriminalization, whichever one you feel more comfortable using, of marijuana. Again, we know in the media there has been a lot of banter recently as to whether it should be done. Of course, that debate has been ongoing, but right now it's a little bit intensified. And Mr. DeCaires has been one of the people who has been very vocal on the subject and continues to really advocate for the decriminalization of the herb. Also, we will touch on politics a bit. Of course, many people are predicting that elections will be called very soon. So many people really want to be in the know as to what is happening and what is the best solutions to many of the problems, the hardships that we all face. Of course, it is agreed that we really are in a dire situation. The economy is bad. Unemployment is very high, and there is much to be done, and there is much to be garnered. So, people who have fresh ideas, have novel ways of seeing things, doing things, and really want to take up that role, really lead the country, really should be given a chance, and should really be given a listening ear. Again, Mr. DeCaires, we're going to start off on the subject of marijuana. Again, and before I enter there, legalization, decriminalization, in your view, what is the difference?
Well, like I was talking earlier, and I explained to you that for the last 18 years, I've actually used the word decriminalization.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I believe that it would have been better received by the general public, as it does not sound as forceful as legalization, which means, I guess to a lot of people, the total free up with no sort of regulations, while decriminalization had some connotation that there would be some sort of regulations. And only recently, dealing with other islands, other CARICOM islands, on the topic from Guyana all the way up to Antigua, the rest of my compatriots are using the word legalization. So only in the last 6 months I've been using the word legalization. And basically, legalization with regulations, to me, in all the research and experience I have, means the same thing as decriminalization with regulations, because the regulations would be the same regardless if you call it legalization or decriminalization. So that's my position on it.
Okay, interesting. I have a similar position though, because when you look at the definitions in the dictionary, it's actually very similar, and one begs to actually, yes, there may be an actual stated definition for both, but again, as you said, the regulations that may come forth, should any of them be pursued by our governments, especially within the Caribbean, which is, especially within some countries who haven't taken it up, it may be similar. So I agree here. Now, of course, we have many positions being put up, many arguments for and against the decriminalization of marijuana. But in your view, what are some of the strongest arguments that support decriminalization?
Well, we fighting it on a three-pronged approach. We fighting it on a human rights approach. We fighting it on the alleviation of crime, using it as a crime fighting initiative. And thirdly, we're looking at it as an economic development tool. So from these three perspectives, we feel that legalization would assist in all areas. And first, as a human rights issue, it is a victimless, non-violent crime, meaning there is no victim and there's no violence involved. Yet, you find that people are incarcerated for a victimless, non-violent crime. Also, too, as a basic human right, we eat what we want. Look at us, we're eating sugar now, and now sugar is killing us. Smoking tobacco is legal, and tobacco deaths are some of the highest, of even higher than heroin and morphine. So, and yet it's illegal. Alcohol is actually lethal, meaning it's just like if you drink or poison yourself with an agrochemical.
Yes.
Because you overdrink with alcohol, you get alcohol poisoning and you die. Yet we use sexual images and images of success and prestige to promote the use of this substance. The Champions League is a Heineken. And these are things, if you drink too much, can kill you. So from a human rights standpoint, there's double standards, because we're promoting the use of these deadly substances, yet you're locking up people for flowers in their pocket. So that's a big double standards, and it's up to people's human rights. That if I am not putting into my body something as dangerous as what the society is promoting, well, then it should be treated exactly like the drugs that society is tolerating and promoting. So that's from the human rights perspective.
So, interesting, because especially when you look at alcohol, and I do agree, because it can be argued, as you are right now, that there are many other substances that studies, records, statistics have showed can be and has been just as, well, has been even more harmful than the use of marijuana. Yet it is illegal to use. Again, alcohol, we all know of the deaths. Again, alcohol isn't that healthy for you, especially when not used in moderation. Again, you mentioned tobacco. I've seen recently some articles in the news where the number of deaths, tobacco-related deaths, are on the rise, and experts around the world are actually saying that it's not as good as we thought. It's bad. So, not just these two, but many other substances are just as bad, and that is actually a very strong argument there. So, it always begs the question, how did, and again, I hope I'm not going too much off topic here, but how did that legalization actually, how did it become illegal? Can you let the listeners know, give them a historical background as to how did that actually come to pass?
Okay, well, yes, a lot of people are under the impression that back in the 1930s, when it did happen, and it happened in the USA, that the medical community and a bunch of psychiatrists got together and said, wait, this substance is dangerous for human beings. Let's make it illegal. That's completely false. No doctors, no medical people were involved in the decision-making process. In fact, it was a bunch of capitalists, opportunists, millionaires who were greedy, who just wanted more money and wanted to eliminate the production of hemp. Because Henry Ford at the time was building cars in the 1930s, and he was using hemp oil to fuel his engines and making the car body out of hemp fiber. Hemp paper is much more productive than wood pulp paper. And the guy who was spreading the propaganda had 20 newspapers up and down the east coast of the United States. His name was Mr. Randolph Hearst. So he was spreading the negative propaganda because he had thousands of acres of timber, and he was going to cut down his timber to make paper for his newspapers, and hemp would have been the competition. So he wanted to eliminate it. Mr. DuPont, who was making plastics out of petrochemicals, wanted to eliminate it because the same products that you can get from petrochemicals, you can get from hemp oil. And then the cotton farmers, the slave owners down in the south, hemp would have given cotton competition as well. So basically, this was a strategy of capitalists trying to eliminate the competition of hemp. And what the newspaper guy did, he used black people and Mexicans as his scapegoats. And in his newspapers, he used to report that when Negroes and Mexicans smoked it, they would look at a white man in his eyes, they would look at a white woman twice, they would stand in shadow. And back in the 30s, black people were still not even a full human being in the United States. So the bill passed in Congress, and that's how it began. So it was not because the substance concerns of the substance of society, it was still about making money by greedy capitalists. And then what really happened is when President Nixon came in, he started this war on drugs. And back then he was in the old Vietnam era where the CIA and these guys were getting heroin from the Golden Triangle and bringing it to the United States. And heroin was in the 60s was killing a lot of people in the States, and it was heroin from Vietnam and those areas. And it's just like all over North and the Iran-Contra deal with Noriega, cocaine for guns and money. And, so it's these kind of characters that get involved and called, and back in the 30s, these sort of characters were the ones who caused cannabis to be made illegal.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting. So again, you were speaking of the human rights. Okay, you're speaking of the free. You said
yes.
We took a three-pronged approach.
Right.
You spoke of human rights, crime fighting, and economic development.
So I'll tell you about the crime fighting now. Okay, right now we have people in Borderley who are in there for possession of ganja or growing ganja. They've never done anybody anything. They've not stolen, raped, or murdered anybody. Yet they're put in jail. Now, some of these guys, some of these people have families. So, when you punish this gentleman for doing nothing to anybody, you're also punishing his family because now you've taken away the breadwinner. Yeah. So you're punishing his woman and his children for possession or growing a plant, for being a farmer. You're penalizing a man for being a farmer, and that is just unacceptable. So they have these sort of people there in Borderley where they shouldn't be. A jail where you incarcerate people is made to put people who don't adhere to the social norms, who break laws, who are dangerous to personal property. You put those people in jail because they cannot assimilate to a civil society. So you put those guys in jail. You don't put people who haven't done anybody anything. So, one, we'll free up the jails and give everybody in Borderley an amnesty. And then what you would do, you would make space for more violent criminals. Secondly, the court system is backlogged. So many people on remand.
Yeah.
So we treat it as a ticketed offense, so that you wouldn't go through the courts, and therefore relieve some of the backlog of cases in the court system. 3, the police officers right now, as it's hard for young people to get jobs, everybody is desperate. They look at cable TV, everybody wants to be a billionaire, and there's no route to get there. Young ladies want men who could give them things, fellas don't have money to give them things. Yeah. So it's a very volatile society, and people are doing desperate things. The police need to form allies and create alliances with the young men of society. Many of the young men are involved in ganja smoking. if we decriminalize, a lot of these young men will not look at the police force as enemies. And it will be mending and creating bridges between the police and the young men in the society. This would be a reduction. This would cause a reduction in crime because there wouldn't be the hatred going back and forth. There'd be a mutual respect. Also, too, it would change the way that the police prioritize their operations. When you have our most highly trained officers up in the hills, hours and hours away from any hotspot that a crime could take place in the cities, using cutlasses and cutting bush in the hills, I think that those officers are underutilized. They are the most highly trained step workers, it looks like. Like I said, that is disrespectful to the fellas. Those fellas should be used in a more optimal situation like patrolling hotspots. Because suppose something really breaks out and you have 12 of our most highly trained guys up in Mount Jimmy cutting weed. How does that help the community?
Yeah.
So on those three things, the easing up of the overcrowding in Borderley, the easing up of the court system, and changing the priorities and the profile of the police. Because now so many people who use ganja in St. Lucia, who consider the police enemies, will now no longer consider the police their enemy. And as a result, would be able to free up information on other crimes much more easily because, a ganja man ain't going to tell the police anything. But if he's not considered as an enemy by the state, they will free up information and we'd be solving more crimes. So that's from the crime fighting initiative.
Very, very, very interesting perspective there.
And then now from the economic development perspective, well, we as a Green Party are totally focused on food security. The average age of a farmer is 56 years in St. Lucia. The average age of a ganja farmer is in his mid-20s to late 20s. We need to embrace these youth who are excellent farmers, and if they could grow ganja that good, they'll probably be able to grow any other vegetable or tree crop that well. These are the people who are going to feed us in the future and feed future generations. So we encourage you youth to come in using the cannabis plant as a loan. And then we focus on increasing the infrastructure of our farming community, roads, drainage, land preparation. And then we have, what this does now, this cuts down our debt because we're spending less money overseas by imported stuff that comes in.
St. Lucia has a very high import bill.
$400 million. So this would stimulate agricultural production. The cannabis plant doesn't only produce ganja.
Interrupt for seconds. Listeners, those listening, I will open the phone lines in 10 minutes time. Again, the number to call us, and I will let you know, is 714-5574. I'm sure those listening will be interested in what Mr. DeCaires is saying and has to say. So I'll open the phone lines a bit. Go on.
Yeah. So that's from an agricultural perspective, and the hemp plant. What we intended to do was to grow for seeds, press the seeds, get the oil, and if the administration had listened to our idea, the coconut factory in Soufrière would have been still open, providing all those jobs, and we would have been adding value to just coconut oil. We would have been making body care products, soap, shampoos, creams, body oils, conditioners, using hemp oil as the active ingredient, but using coconut as the base. We did all our research. As a result, now we have a closed down coconut factory.
But isn't it open right now? I'm not sure.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
And the whole coconut industry, now we are at a stage now that we're fighting to reinvigorate it, when we could have done that 10 to 12 years ago. So that's the agricultural industry, employing youth, feeding ourselves, lessening the food import bill, eating less processed foods and supporting the local farmer, better health for the country. Secondly, in the tourism industry, when Cuba opens up, that's the end of us. North American tourists are all going to go to Cuba.
When the embargo is lifted, right?
Well, yes, and Obama has done that, Mr. Obama has done that, and Cuba is going to be the #1 destination. And while is anybody going to come to St. Lucia?
Yeah, a lot of talk has been going on that Cuba is going to suck a lot of the market away from many small countries.
So why come to St. Lucia? For what? For beautiful beaches and sand and what? That everybody else doesn't have? How are we going to stand?
Everybody wants to experience.
Right. Cuba will not legalize weed. Not now, not for the next 20 years, because of their ideology. That's not happening. If we decriminalize or legalize, and hotels have smoking areas just like where people smoke their pipes and their cigars.
Like in Amsterdam.
Basically like Amsterdam. In the middle of winter, you could sit on the beach, look at the sunset, sip a piton, smoke a François Jacques high grade. You will come to St. Lucia. We will have hotels filled year round. So the ganja tourism will be massive. Many more opportunities for young farmers to be supplying hotels. The whole, everybody would require a license to sell. You have to go through an apprenticeship, of course, so that you know how to approach people. Everybody would have a little digital scale so that you don't rip off people.
We're actually just about to get into that because, and yes, your arguments are really, really interesting. I'm sure the listeners echo my same sentiment. But again, to lead into my next question, I was about to ask you, suppose that it was actually decriminalized. What are some of the restrictions, what are some of the boundaries that you would believe that the government, say a governmental minister, government official is listening? What are some of the boundaries that would have to be set to really control its use and regulate how it is being spread around the country?
Well, we have a 17-point recommendation that we came up with in November. After November 2013, we had several stakeholders there. Dr. King was there. Mr. Lapopine from the Ministry of Agriculture was there. Mr. Cuthbert Phillips, the ex-police commissioner, was there. We had Dr. Gilbert of St. Rose. We had Bongo Wisely Tafarai. We had Kailash. Priest Kailash was there. We had Gerald Bergas from the Chamber of Commerce. We had Mr. Cipriani from the Drug Advisory Secretariat. And we did a one-day conference. It was hosted by the cannabis movement. And after that, so the recommendations weren't those guys. It was of the cannabis movement. But we got those recommendations because these guys stood up and said what they had to say. And we have 17 recommendations, and some of the restrictions are like, for public smoking, you get a hefty fine, $250. There'll be no public smoking, only in designated smoking areas. You'll be only allowed to carry a certain amount on you if some police holds you and it's more than the amount, you weigh the extra, and you get ticketed for the extra. You'd have to have a license to grow, you'd have to have a license to traffic, you'd have to have a license to sell, and all those would come with workshops, and you'd have to get a sort of diploma to say that you've passed a course so you know what you're doing. You're not hustling tourists and begging them and,
Peddlers.
Yeah, you're not making people feel uncomfortable. You want everybody to realize this is a safe, wonderful island to come to. And apart from that, restrictions about the youth. We have also prevention and harm reduction strategies, which is a whole educational blitz that before we do any legalizing, we want to make sure that the whole country is sensitized about all the recommendations so everybody knows. Nobody could say, well, I didn't know, that's why I was smoking here. You're a smoker, you should know where to smoke. So there will be very tight regulations. And it's what we say is educate and regulate.
Okay. So, before I move on, listeners, it's 25 past 8. The phone lines are open now, so you are free to place your calls. We were getting a bit of calls earlier, and I haven't turned them down. So let me revisit some of those recommendations that you listed. Again, It's interesting you mentioned public zones for smoking should be decriminalized. Again, interesting that you mentioned the license for those who want to grow the herb and use it for the right purposes. But what I really want to revisit, and I think that is the main concern of a lot of people. That is the main concern or fear of a lot of people. Should it be decriminalized? Is it okay for a young person to simply have one, even if it's not in public, and be smoking? Is that the message that we are actually sending to them? What is your take on that?
Well, yes, the message gets confused, and I understand the confusion, because you see, we are making a health issue a criminal justice issue. Because really and truly, the sort of effects, negative effects that you get from the use of cannabis, especially the smoking, is probably lung problems and mental problems. Now, a lung problem is not a criminal problem, and a mental problem is not a criminal problem. These problems should be a healthcare problem and not a criminal justice problem. So if you know that somebody is going off on ganja, he shouldn't be locked up. He should go to some medical facility. If some man is getting COPD from ganja, he should be, checked out and put in a facility that you could help him. Instead of holding a man with ganja, which you think is a health problem, because that's what everybody thinks the law is there for, to save ganja smokers from themselves. That's basically it. The law is there to save you from yourself. That's why the law is there. A lot of people think so. But so as a result, you trying to save me, but you putting me in jail? How is that saving me? Put me in a medical facility and get me off the ganja that you say is doing so much damage to me. That would be the more rational direction to take. But no, we fall into this criminal justice thing, and now we're sending people to jail and wrecking families for a really trivial crime, while people are committing massive crimes and not getting penalized for it. And it's usually the poor man who ends up in prison.
Yes, I get what you're saying. I get the perspective that you're coming from. But again, my question was directed to those who are very young, those children who are young and upcoming. Should the legalization make it okay in their eyes for them to actually use it?
Well, I could tell you my personal experience. And if there are youth listening, was not a, in Form 1 I was pretty good, Form 2 I was pretty good, In Form 3, when I was 14 years old, I started smoking ganja. That's actually 40 years ago. And from the time I started smoking ganja, all my marks went down. Because you can't really study or retain anything if you're high on ganja. So I can't wait for the last bell to ring and then go down by my buddies and smoke weed, and then have to go home to do homework. And I was useless. And as a result, I failed many subjects. And I had to get sent away to a boarding school to finish my education and cost my family's money and stress. So I would never encourage young people to get involved in smoking ganja until you're out of your parents' house. It may be a hypocritical stance on my part, because you all must be saying, but you started when you were 14. It was a mistake. I shouldn't have, but I wouldn't say that was a gateway drug. I was drinking alcohol with my buddies in school, because in school it's not peer pressure, but that's where you're exposed to cigarettes and rum and
I agree.
And that's 40 years ago. So when parents these days say, my son is so young and he's smoking weed, that's not a new phenomenon. 40 years ago.
Exposure was always there.
Yeah, it was always there. What we want to do though is really educate and send out the right message to the kids. Prevention strategies that we have, that we'll be laying out the prevention strategies and our harm reduction strategies. Because for instance, there are so many guys there listening and people listening who who can't burn a split without putting tobacco in it. Now tobacco is killing people.
Yeah.
And they hooked on the tobacco. I never go in with tobacco. Never. Never. And what Dr. King, who is a forensic pathologist, who cuts open dead people, has told me years ago, is that the older Rasta men's lungs are in much better condition than some of the young ghetto youth's young lungs. That's because the older Rasta men were burning straight ganja. And the young ghetto youths mixing all their joints with tobacco. You'd find that also a man mixing his split with tobacco could smoke plenty more. So now you have more smoke going down in your lungs, causing more tar. While if you have a straight spliff, you smoke a lot less. So the combination of smoking so much more ganja plus the chemical from the tobacco is causing a medical condition in the country that is unacceptable. So we need to talk about this and educate the fellas and tell the fellas, put down the tobacco and the green tobacco, the Fonto. All of it contains the same carcinogens and the same compounds that cause tar in your lungs. Just drop that crap. Some of them like it because of the boom head. When you pull a tobacco, it boom up your head. But the boom gone in 10 minutes, and that's why you have to smoke another one. So you're wasting money, you're wasting your lungs for what? You're not even getting a good meditation. Please, if anybody's listening, try and ease off on the tobacco, the Phantom, all of it. That's not how the herb's supposed to be used.
Very, very, very interesting. And a quick note, you said you've prepared, a document and prepared where a lot of the recommendations were cited. Is it available online for anybody who's curious?
Well, when the website goes up, and I'm still putting content on the website.
Oh, okay.
So hopefully we try to launch our campaign for the election mid-February. So when we launch it, the website's supposed to be up. So in about 3 weeks the website will be up, and a lot of the information and links will be on the website so people can educate themselves about the positions that we have.
Very, very interesting. And listeners, in addition to calling us, you can also message us on WhatsApp. We do accept WhatsApp messages. I will read them and relay them to Mr. DeCaires. Now, interestingly enough, at the point that we're at, what are some of the biggest hindrances that you believe the government, or St. Lucian government that is, face as it comes to the decriminalization of marijuana? What are some of the biggest challenges right now when it comes to making a decision? Because obviously not everyone is for it, not everyone is against it. But what are some of the biggest challenges as to say whether it should be decriminalized or not be decriminalized? Because as we know, and as you're part of the cannabis movement, have really been advocating its decriminalization, and they're not the only ones. Many other people and many other dignitaries have actually supported it, giving them an even stronger voice. Again, as you mentioned, Dr. Stephen King really, and others as well, really saying that it should be, and being very open and frank about it, and actually not being hypocritical and anyone saying that it actually should be. So, what are some of the biggest challenges that you think the government or any party that's in power would face when it comes to the decriminalization?
Well, prior to Jamaica, I thought there would be an international backlash of some kind. That if we went ahead, that there may be negative repercussions, you're not going to send cruise ships or something. I heard that talk, that there will be negative repercussions. And I wouldn't doubt it, because when you look at a country like the United States and look at the amount of police killings of black people, who is taking them on for those extrajudicial killings, I could call that, of black innocent people? They have nobody to take them on. But when they look at us, they want to sanction us and embarrass our police force, So these are the same people as well that when they were cutting down the ganja, they took the ganja on the helicopters back out to their boats. And now it's legal in their country, but they don't want it legal in our country. So we really have to look at the motive behind America not wanting us to decriminalize. And I think it's a lot about greed and they want to control the market. But having said that, Jamaica gone ahead and doing it last year, and there's no negative repercussions, then I don't foresee any negative repercussions if any administration goes ahead and does it here. They must just involve the cannabis movement, because we have been researching this and we know how it's supposed to fall out.
Yeah.
They need to involve us, whoever does it, because all the research is there, we have all the research, and they have none. They're still thinking about not doing it.
They need to consult with.
Exactly. And not only that, when we came out in 1998, the only country that had liberal cannabis laws was Holland, the city of Amsterdam.
Yeah.
When we came out in 1998 and submitted our hemp proposal to the government, only Amsterdam had liberal cannabis laws. Not California, not Oregon, not Washington, not Uruguay, none of the places. So we have squandered an opportunity to be a world leader in this magnificent field because of lack of vision by both administrations. Lack of vision.
Interesting.
Jamaica just got $100 million Canadian investment in their ganja.
Wow.
Dr. Anthony had promised $100 million. We gave him, we said, Dr. Anthony, look at this thing. This could be big in the future. No. And look at all. So this is a big opportunity, missed opportunity. And then the next administration came in and did nothing either. At the end of the last administration with Mr. Stevenson King, Mr. King invited us in the ICA, the Ayanola Council for the Advancement of Rastafari. I am a de facto member there and I speak on their cannabis matters.
Okay.
So we went in there, we had a meeting with them and we made the presentation. And Mr. Stevenson King was ready to start a commission at that time. Was ready to do it. So I have to give Mr. Stevenson King kudos, because none of the other leaders were prepared to even sit down and discuss it with us. So, unfortunately, that was a September, and then in November after that September, the UWP lost the election, and the SLP got in there. So that was another missed opportunity, but that's the way life goes. So, I believe now what any administration should do, should engage with the cannabis movement. Let's get the recommendations going and be totally transparent and open. So if any foreign country wants to see what we are doing, we could be a model for other island developing states who want to do it as well. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to do it and for our leaders to look at this in a more serious light.
Very, very, very interesting. Again, you really taking time and elucidating the misconceptions as it pertains to economic benefit. Again, you selecting on examples, for example, Jamaica, who've got large investments, and not just external investments, the people themselves, opportunities, spin-offs that are created, money beginning to circulate. And that is really what the economy needs. Right now, we're scraping. Although Prime Minister and others speak of gradual growth, but it's not really coming.
The people are not feeling the gradual growth.
Yeah,
because
it's not really felt on the ground.
No, because you see, traditional economic principles are based on the trickle-down method of economics, where industries like the tourism industry is based, where the big money gets in at the top, and you hope that the rest of the money trickles down to the bartenders and the housekeeping staff and the taxi drivers. But that's just them at the bottom of the pyramid. And we've been led to believe that this trickle-down method of economics is the method that we should be using. And I say that's not the method. We should be using a filter-up method of economics, the complete opposite, where the base is where the money comes in first. And that economic method is agriculture. When we were in bananas, the poor man got his money every week from cutting his bananas, and then he would go to the business houses in the cities, in Beaufort, in Castries. He would pay his water bill, he would pay his electric bill, he would buy a car, he would buy this. And his money would now go into the economy. And then the people who own the business houses would pay their taxes, and the government would get it at the end. That's called the filter-up method of economics. It's a more sustainable model. But economists and all these people want to try and fool the people. Agriculture is the way out. And the kind of agriculture that we have, say, integrated farming systems, diversified farming systems. This is what we're pushing on. Small land holdings, maximum efficiency, totally diversified. This is what we want to push to the country. So we will lessen our food import bill. Our people will now support our local farmers. That is a challenge. To get people off the ramen and the Kentucky and start buying what the local farmers are producing. This is a strategy that we are still working on, even though we will launch next February. It's a continuing strategy because we are so hooked by the processed foods.
Yeah.
And the corn syrup and the sugar and the salt.
That is another segment in itself, yeah.
We could talk a whole program on that. But all that is part of the green awareness plan. That I told you earlier that you can't just give us a vote and expect things to change. That the people must be part of the change.
Yeah. And very, very, very interesting perspective, listeners. And let me touch on a little bit of a more ticklish point. Do you believe that the church has too big of a role to play when it comes to the influence on such matters? Of course, we know ultimately it's the government who makes the ultimate decision. But do you think that their influence is too much of a... I don't want to step on anyone's toes there. But again, in all fairness, do you believe that their influence is too big? Do you think they have too much of a say as to how much the process is expedited or whether it happens at all? What is your take?
No, on the contrary, most, at least our Roman Catholic priests are religious scholars. So they studied religion. A lot of these pastors too, from the other denominations, they have knowledge of the Bible. But I think the Roman Catholic priests, they went through religious knowledge courses. And when we look at, I've done extensive research on religion since I was a teenager, just searching for the purpose of anything. Why are we here? Why is it here? Why is the universe here? From a teenage boy, I was checking it out and interviewing priests and pundits and my brother was part of an ashram. So I was exposed to many different religions and trying to find out what God is. And what I found out is that in a lot of the ancient religions, a lot of the high priests used psychoactive substances to take them from their normal being and elevate them and bring them where they thought they'd be closer to a godlike experience.
In a normal state.
Right. And in India, a lot of priests use ganja. In some of the other parts of the world, they use different things. In North America, the Indians were using the peyote cactus. In South America, they were using mushrooms, certain mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms. And these were the priests of the tribes or of the communities of the day. And back then, the hemp plant was in the Middle East, where Iraq, Iran, Syria, Israel is, where Jesus Christ was. And those plants were growing wild. And people would use them to make nets and ropes for their boats. He was on the Sea of Galilee, and that's where he got his disciples. So Jesus Christ was exposed to the cannabis plant. Yet nowhere in the Bible, thou shalt not burn the herb. In fact, in Genesis chapter 1, verses 11 to 13, and God made every plant of the land and said it was good. So, if people in the church have a problem with the plant, they should take it up with God and say, God, you made a mistake by putting that plant on earth. So this is, I think there are other places in the Bible where they talk about the seed of the plant is there for the benefit of mankind. So, and that's in Genesis. So our plants are, that particular plant too, has been in man's history for a very long time. For 3,000 years it's been a part of man's history. In its pharmacopoeia, it made ropes, it made sails, it made oil, it made anointing oils, it made healing oils. You know, it's just greedy capitalists, opportunists in the 1930s that messed this whole thing up. This plant is not supposed to be legal. We have the Datura plant, which is the joy juice plant. That's not illegal, but you take joy juice and see what happens to you. You go, that sends you mad. So the police cut down every joy juice plant and they right by the side of the road. So it's a whole propaganda that has been invented to fight this plant that could actually heal so many problems in the world.
Very, very, very interesting, listeners. And I wish we would have some more people actually preaching in here. Because, again, Mr. DeCaires just, again, gave a bit of a religious perspective as to whether, well, again, I asked, for those following, again, I asked about whether the involvement was too much of a big one. And again, he actually challenging the assertion that it should not be so by quoting from the Bible. Now, to wrap up this part of our segment, I'm going to ask you about when we speak of the decriminalization, about what do you think is the best solution right now? Of course, we know the benefits as to decriminalization, but when you take into consideration all what that has been going on, all the people that have been supporting, do you see it coming on stream pretty soon? What do you see it is something that, for St. Lucia in particular, you see will happen? Won't happen for many years. What is your tip as to where it is and how quickly it may become legalized?
Well, our politicians in the SLP and the UWP are not going to go ahead and do it. They are going to wait for the CARICOM Commission to make a decision. I have the CARICOM Commission and it met once or twice in 18 months. So they're not serious about that. So we're going to actually miss this opportunity if we wait on the CARICOM Commission. And if we wait on the two other established parties to do anything, we're going to miss this vote. So I don't think it's going to happen. I think the people of St. Lucia are much more educated and aware because you're seeing it on CNN, you're seeing it on everywhere. That, you know, look at Colorado. They're going up to 2 years since they did it. Drunk driving deaths have gone down. Opiate overdoses have gone down. Crime has gone down. The money has made, and the state has made endless money. They've done it in Uruguay. They're doing it in Oregon. They're doing it in California. They did it in Portugal 14 years ago. And they have less AIDS, less needle-to-needle transfer of hepatitis. They have less crime, less people using drugs. So the data is there for us to analyze.
Yeah,
it is not something new that's
it's not like it's in its infancy.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's not like it happened and people are diving out of windows and hospitals are overflowing with mad people and people are murdering. That didn't happen when they legalized. Everybody thought that would happen. But I must take this opportunity now to warn people that when you smoke ganja and when you eat ganja, they're two different, completely different experiences. And there are a lot of people say, boy, well, I don't smoke and I'm not a chimney, I'll eat it for the experience. This could put you in hospital. When you eat ganja, it's a completely different experience.
Why is that so?
because it's metabolized differently. When you smoke ganja, you take the smoke into your lungs, and you're just the same way oxygen is translocated to your blood cells, and your oxygenated blood cells go around the body, and you oxygenate your body, and then it takes the carbon dioxide from your body and you breathe it out.
Yes.
Okay. The THC enters the body the same way through the lungs and goes up to the brain, and within minutes you start to feel the effects. When you eat it, you have to wait for your body to digest it in your stomach, and it takes a lot longer, and it enters different parts of your body. So you feel your legs and you feel your arms feel weird, and your thoughts and the experience mentally is completely different.
So you're saying that, not because you're saying that certain things like marijuana and kick shouldn't be experimented with too much?
Correct. People have been to hospital here. A lot of people have been to hospital already. And I'm a fair and honest person. I'm not promoting the use of ganja. I'm just making sure that when we give out advice, it's good advice. It's about protecting the youth. It's about preventing people from starting in the first place, and it's from reducing the harm if you do use it. And the only way to do that is to educate the people. So I'm using this opportunity now to give people a warning. Just don't go and make your brownies or your cupcakes and just eat it like that. If you're doing it and you're hell-bent on doing it, take a little piece at a time and check yourself out. If you eat too much, you're going to really feel sick and you're going to end up in the hospital.
Yeah, because I was thinking, as you were speaking about the difference between when it is smoked and when it is eaten, I was thinking quantity as well. So because sometimes, say it's eaten, say it's something, you don't know the quantity that the person prepared
Correct.
in it. So again, it may be a much larger quantity than one may actually smoke, as much as smoking is what is publicized as bad. And also, what was I going to say? Also, when you look at marijuana, for example, so why are you going to say that?
That's different too.
Okay, how is that different?
Okay, the tea is different because a lot of the compounds in the plant itself remain in the plant.
Oh, okay.
And only some are drawn out into the water, and you benefit from these compounds. But when you eat the thing, then you eat in the whole plant, so all the compounds there. And there are some compounds in the plant that have another effect. For people who are accustomed to it, it's okay. They can handle it. Me, I don't eat it because I ate it once and it was not a pleasant experience.
Okay.
So, I think part of the education, the educate and regulate, is to let people know, you don't want to mess up your lungs, so you're going to eat it and you think it's hunky-dory, it's okay. No, you have to be very careful.
Very, very, very interesting. I hope the listeners, those listening, again, we have a wide reach here throughout Suzel and other parts of the island. Those listening are actually taking that into consideration, because he's not saying that drinking, for example, marijuana is bad, or he's not saying that smoking it necessarily would really put you in hospital. But again, especially if the eating is going to the quantity, and also not just the amount of THC that is in there, but then the other substances that are part of the plant, especially if the eating, right?
Yeah.
And how that could actually send many people to hospital. And they may think that the entire thing is very good, especially for taking it in a way that you're not smoking.
Yeah, they're using it medicinally because people use it. I know there's an oil you can make from it.
Yeah,
it's called Red Simpson oil. Red Simpson is one of the first guys who did it. And a lady came up to me in Supra and she said she heard me and she researched it, and her child who was getting epilepsy. People have come up to me and said they've used it for asthma. People have come up to me and said they've used it for other ailments. So, you can use it in various ways. for various ailments. Right now, there's a huge study suggesting that for certain cancers, it kills cancer cells, or it causes cancer cells to kill themselves. And there's a lot more studies being done with the medical effects of it.
And I was about to say, from my knowledge of its use, especially in some countries, it's grown, and they call it medicated marijuana, in that they change the slight composition of the actual herb itself to make it safe for medical use.
They take the THC out of it.
Yeah, that is it exactly. Take the THC out of it. And again, we could do such down here too.
Of course, we have excellent farmers. There, to all the farmers who are listening to me out there, who have engaged with me and spoken to me, a lot of these guys' knowledge far surpass mine because they're in it all the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, because of my profile, I don't walk around with ganja and don't grow ganja because the police and the whole system is looking at me. But we have some very, very educated young men out there and women who are doing gardening, and we could come up with when we talk about tourism, I'm also talking about medical ganja tourism. So people come down here in the middle of winter, they may have had their chemo, and they just want to be warm in a warm place, and taking the oil and medicating down here in the sun to recover from the chemo and the radiation. They have so many avenues that we could take, and they could have guys growing specific varieties to treat specific ailments. The amount of things that we could do is endless.
And another spin-off could be potential experts, those who have expertise that are using it as treatments. Yeah, again.
Yeah, come here and to St. Lucia to be treated down here. In the a holistic approach with raw foods and organic ganja, and this sort of thing in a warm place that is quiet in the hills somewhere, a sort of retreat for cancer sufferers to get. There are endless opportunities, but we must start thinking outside the box. And these traditional conservative politicians, they're thinking just inside the box. And the youth are all wired up with Facebook. They getting all the information. They know what's going down.
People are aware.
Yeah, people are aware now. So when you hear these politicians trying to pull the wool over people's eyes, the youth know, That's why the Green Party is there for the youth. We're talking skateboard parks, BMX, downhill tracks, and, exports. And because recreation is important. You're not going to work your whole life and then die without, enjoying it. So.
And as you said, the Green Party. And listeners, right now, we're shooting gears from the actual marijuana decriminalization debate. And we're moving on to the Green Party. As you know, Mr. DeCaires is actually the interim leader of the Green Party. And Mr. DeCaires, can you tell us about your party right now? I know that the party contested the last election.
Yes, we had two candidates.
And can you tell us what are the plans of the party for this upcoming election? Of course, the date has been mentioned, but what is in the pipeline?
Well, basically, a green manifesto doesn't change to suit the people. A green manifesto is there for the next 1,000 years. We are looking at long-term solutions now. The infrastructure that we have to implement as a society so that our great-grandchildren and great-great-great-grandchildren can live in a clean, beautiful island, swim in unpolluted seas and drink clean water and eat food. So we have to set the foundation for now. So green parties have an ideology that doesn't waver here and there to see how many votes you're getting. And basically it's about education. In the last election we went out kind of late, but I needed to wet my feet, because we didn't want to be new this election. We had no intention of winning the last election or anything, but we wanted us to get noticed so that we could start planting the seed in people's mind that, there's a green party, what does green mean? And now I think when you see on CNN and all the newsreels, it's green this, green that, green energy, green. So people are starting to realize, well, green is say no to plastics and reduce this and reduce your carbon footprint. It's going to take a lot of time here because a lot of people don't think about that and don't think about governance being decentralized. We always think that there's a prime minister and the ministers and they're in control of everything. But really in a green government, it's decentralized, so the people really have the power. So it's about educating the people. So now we come to this election and basically we're doing the same thing. We really haven't changed much. We just expanded on our manifesto. And now we have a much brighter Facebook page, and a lot has happened in the last 4 years, so we can educate people. The Facebook page, it has to be updated. We started this week, and we've got our website domain, and we're just finishing up the content. Because listeners out there have to realize, if you want real change, you can't just put your tiqua by the Green Party, sit back and say, yeah, well, what are you doing for me? If that is your attitude, do not put your tiqua by the BEF, because the cow is our symbol. Do not put it by the cow, put it by one of the other fellas, and then hope and see what you're going to get. We're letting you know from now, this is what you're going to get. You have to be part of the solution. The Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson. First take a look at yourself. We can't stop pollution if you're polluting. We can't stop cancer if you eat in the way that you're eating. We can't do anything, me by myself, getting in a seat, can't do anything for you if you are living in a despicable lifestyle. And, you have to be part. So listeners, if you want to support the Green Party, you have to be part of it. Start exercising, start moderating, start, living a greener life. Start thinking about where your money is going when you go to the grocery. Are you supporting a company like Del Monte that has slave labor making pineapples in Mexico? And our Monsanto, who's, we have to start thinking. We know that the colonialist and the white man has done us all these wrongs, and then we're taking our very money and giving it back to them again. So that's a kind of slavery, but it's slavery in our pockets, not chains around our feet anymore. Right. So take your money and give it to a black man, a black local man. This is what we're pushing. Decentralized governance. Eat what we grow what we eat, but we really know, because I'm an agriculturalist and I've been in the field for 33 years. I'm not somebody who thinks about agriculture and then comes up with an idea. I do it. I know what I need. I know what irrigation. I know what filter. I know what pump. I know what, you name it. I drive my own tractor. I prepare my own land. So the agricultural manifesto is based on what farmers need. So I can't get into it because it's 17 pages long. But just letting the people know what the Green Party is about.
So, interesting, and the ideology of the party is quite interesting. So, tell the listeners, do you have a full quota of candidates for your election already this time?
Well, our whole plan is not to get a group of us together and then we put people in certain constituencies and say, well, that's us, vote for us. No. Like I said earlier, it's about decentralized governance. And we're actually going to be looking for people and investigating people in the area who want to go up under our banner of green. They have to come and learn what it is to be green, and if they want to do it, it's contribute for self. If you come in looking for a position or a title or money, try the other party. Please don't come here. We're for St.Lucia, we're not for self.
Strong disclaimer.
Yeah. Do not come here if you're looking to big up yourself. This is for the people.
So, my final question for you to wrap up this segment. Okay, listeners, it's gone over slightly over 9 o'clock, but I'm sure everyone has repeated, so that shouldn't be a problem. But, being general here, what is your advice for a young person who wants to enter the political arena? What is your advice? Or is thinking of entering the political arena?
Wow, that's a heavy question. I think by now you'd realize I'm not your run-of-the-mill politician. I try not to be, because they're the most disliked creature in St.Lucia right now. And here I am putting myself there. So I'm sure people are painting me with the same brush and saying, well, that's just another politician. And I guess I have to take the stick for that. But it's like I say, it's country before self, so I don't really care what people think of me. I'm doing this for the betterment of their children as well, even the critics. Your children are going to be better off going for a green agenda.
Okay.
So to the young people getting in here, I do want to apologize. I'm going to be 54, so the youngers in their 20s and 30s looking at me as an old man. I apologize on behalf of all the people my age and older for being a bunch of videos and lying to you all and making you all feel that success is well within reach. And many of you all go to school, come out with great marks, and get offered $35 and $40 a day. I apologize for that. It's just the whole system is rigged against the youth right now. I would encourage anybody, a youth, especially females, because the Green Party is about equal justice. It's a justice party. And we would like to feel more females than males so that they're represented equally in the political arena. So for young ladies and young men, we think that we're going to have seats available for young women especially and men to come on board. I think joining a traditional party, you would be basically under one kind of leader and you say as I do. Yeah. While in the Green Party it's a very democratic situation and everybody sort of has a say and everybody's say is considered. I personally am not an autocratic leader, and why I call myself an interim leader is because I never had any intention of wanting to be Prime Minister of this country. But when I saw the other two parties really missing the ball, I felt that I could step forward and come up with a much better plan and ideology along with all the people who helped me along. I have friends from all over the world that I consult with, so I get free consultation from experts in huge fields. So when I speak with authority. Even though it may not be my field, I have somebody that I can speak to. So the young person in politics, I would say, be brave, don't follow the norm, because the norm has gotten us to where we are today. We have to break the mold of the traditional politician. I think we have to respect everybody and realize that we are servants and we are not we're not supposed to be the ones being served. And I think a lot of politicians, when they get in that position, all of a sudden think they're little kings and queens. And we must stay away from this sort of ideology.
Interesting. Very, very, very interesting. Extremely interesting, actually. Alright, everybody. Mr. Andrew DeCaires, I'd like to thank you for appearing as a guest on Youth on the Rise, especially on our 1 year anniversary. A very interesting way to mark 1 year of this show being on. Before I wrap up, any last words for our listeners?
Yes, 2 or 3 things I have to say is that I think because we are a Green Party and we talk about climate change and global warming, this might be our 3rd year of a very dry year, and there'll be farmers there with food in the ground and tree crops who last year haven't really bore as usual because we're in a drought situation, so food supply will be less. And this is just a sort of heads up to the people. I hope that I'm wrong. I'm usually wrong, so let's hope I'm wrong and we get a lot of rain during the dry season to sort of help the water situation for everybody. And that climate change is real. Some of it is caused by people and some of it is naturally caused. But there's a combination and it is definitely happening and we have to think about our food supply. I think the political, economic and peace situation in the world is getting dire. And there's more war and there'll be more refugees and there'll be more strain on the food supply. And I am harping on the food supply again because I think we in St. Lucia need to start producing more food for ourselves. So I, as the interim leader of the Green Party, will not say better days or bring back the good old days or all this, let's make a better change. I'm going to say to you listeners, the world is getting worse. Things are going to get a lot worse for us. Be prepared. Think green, live green.
Thank you. Listeners, extremely interesting segment here. Personally, I'm excited. So, this evening, you've listened to a segment again with the interim leader of the Green Party, the Lucians Green Party, Mr. DeCaires. Again, we've been speaking on the subject of marijuana decriminalization and also the recent happenings and objectives, intentions of this party. Again, listeners, I'd like to thank everybody for listening. Again, we could have had some more feedback from the public. However, I'm very thankful for everybody. I'd like to take this opportunity on our 1-year anniversary to thank everybody for the support, the patronage of this radio show, and also anyone listening who likes our content, hoping that we expand our reach throughout the island. And also, I'd like to thank again Mr. DeCaires for making his way all the way from Castries to here to be with us. Again, it's my hope that those listening really had their minds worked a bit and really consider the ideologies, the positions that he takes on various subjects, and really think about it and make some changes where necessary. Okay? Again, listeners, stay tuned for next week's episode. I'd like to thank everybody for listening. I wish everybody a pleasant good evening and goodbye.